Hello there and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, and on yesterday's podcast, we talked about preservation of fertilizers and biostimulants and inputs, and I thought I'd just give a brief appendix to that, addendum, whatever you want to say, and just talk about some of the microgreens experiments we've been doing and some of the interesting results from that. So, one of the things that people often mistake for bad preservation is you go into a grocery store and you see all the bottles sucking in and you think, oh, it's been badly preserved. And that's not necessarily bad preservation. That's normally an organic product. It's got some sort of organic product in there and it's pulled the air in as it's been consumed. Very common on a lot of sort of biostimulant products, really common in organic fertilizers. There is a way around it, but I'm not good, when your competitor's making a mistake, don't interrupt them, sort of thing. So you'll see a lot of organic fertilizers. They look like they've been sucking a lemon. Their cheeks are sucked in. It looks unprofessional and it warps the bottles, makes them unsightly, and you can't read the labels properly, especially if they're behind a counter. So nothing wrong with the product inside them, actually. So that's fine. What is bad preservation? If it's bloated, if the bottom is bulging out and the bottle can't sit well on the shelf, that's when you know that product's degraded over time. So watch out for that. And also the final one is if it's got floaty bits in it. I used to make seaweed extracts for Plant Magic when they were not bought by Nutriculture and they were not with Global Air Supplies, way back when they were their own company. I used to sell them seaweed extracts and we preserved it with food grade preservatives, as we do. But the problem is that when you dilute that product, the preservatives no longer work because they're on the edge of their effectiveness, so that when you dilute them, they don't have any long-term preservation effects. They were diluting the seaweed extract, and it was when you found a bottle of their foliar spray on the shelf, it had all floaty bits in it because the microbes were free to live on the seaweed extract again. So always look out for floaty bits. You'll see that in a few hydroponic products. Hopefully not in the Evolution product. I've not seen it on the shelf for a long time. I would imagine they've sorted that problem now. So that's not a problem. That's a UK-based product if you're interested. I don't think they sell it in America anyway. But keep an eye out. There's lots of products on sale in America that are badly preserved or anywhere else in the world. Okay, so that was the addition to the preservation episode from yesterday. And then just talk about what I found with my microgreens experiments we've been doing here. So I spent about £1,000 on a microgreen setup here in the lab. And the first experiment was a rather worrying result. I found that when growing pea shoots, adding fertilizer has no effect on how good the crop is, doesn't increase the yield, and it didn't increase the quality. If anything, it was a bit more tangier, and people didn't like that. Some people did, some people didn't. And so that was a bit disappointing. I was like, oh my God, I spent all this on optimizing the fertilizer regime for microgreens, and it turns out that they have no effect. And that was without grow media as well. So if you're growing pea shoots, two takeaways there is don't need a fertilizer. You're growing pea shoots, microgreens. The second one is you don't need to add grow media, cocoa or peat or anything, soil, anything, compost mix. It's just a source of contamination. You'll get perfectly well just growing them on moist paper towel and water. So pea shoots, away you go, cheap as chips. And you can just use the peas that you would buy in a health food shop. So the dried peas. So of the 7 plants I tried, growing them from just store-bought seeds, then from a health store, I think 5 out of 6 worked really well. The only one that didn't was quinoa. So peas worked really well, as did spelt grass or wheatgrass. And there, thankfully, we are seeing a really big result of adding fertilizer. So I'm just looking at my shelves now, and I can see the shelf that had just water in, the wheatgrass is looking, pretty poor. 0.5 mil per litre is looking good, and then 1 mil per litre is looking really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it even more. So the next trial, always do dose response trials to see where the top of the curve is, where does it plateau out? And it could be it plateaus out at 1 milliliter of gold leaf, or liquid gold as it's called in the UK, per litre, or it might plateau out at 4. Who knows? So let's see how far we push it. Again, eventually we'll get to the point where growth is reduced or it just becomes uneconomical to apply that much fertilizer, probably where growth is reduced, I would imagine. And then the other trial I've been doing is spring onions, still trying to grow flipping spring onions hydroponically, and they are doing my nutting, as we say here in the UK. They are just weak, and I've tried growing them in the dark to begin with, growing them in the light. I've tried growing them in various growing medias. I'm just a terrible spring onion grower. What other trials have we got going on at the moment? I've got a trial. Again, I'm going to do another trial on peas just to see if soaking them in fertilizer solution during the first 8 hours when you soak the solution has an effect, rather than putting them in the fertilizer once they've been soaked for a week, whether it's that initial soaking helps. And then what other trials have we got? Got one more trial, and that's looking at pre-treating wheat seeds with our Slugger product, which is a liquid ferric phosphate product, completely unrelated to hydroponics, but the microgreen setup allows us to run that quick trial to see if we can coat our seeds in ferric phosphate before we put them out in the field. And if we can, then potentially we've got a really good way of preventing slugs from eating them. So watch this space. Of no relevance whatsoever to hydroponic growers, because unless you're growing outdoors in the UK, slugs and snails are probably not going to be a big issue for you. Anyway, that's been Hydroponics Daily today. Not one big interesting topic, but lots of little tidbits. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, found any value, and you've not left an Apple podcast review yet, please do so, because it helps me out tremendously. Okay, we got to number 12 in the charts. Something crazy. We were so close to breaking the top 10. And then we faded away a bit now. So come on, if you get into the top 10, I'll put another reward in for your podcasts. I'll have a really juicy podcast episode for you. All right, that's enough waffle. Until tomorrow, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.